one, the parent has to be ready. Two, in terms of safety, so there's a couple things. We never start any kind of sleep teaching before 2 weeks or before breastfeeding is established. So sleep teaching just means getting a good schedule, ensuring good feeds, making sure your little one is on a good routine and having a good sleep environment. And that can be done right from day one. And that's where we get a lot of parents using our nurturing program, because it's just a slow progression towards good sleep habits.
Beautiful.
And then some parents have kind of gone through the first few months and they're like at a point where baby's now having some issues with sleep and they're reaching out to us and they're like, when could I start a formal, like, let's break the habits that we've now put in place. When can I start that? And we can't do that before 16 weeks. So 4 months is the earliest you would want to implement a full-blown sleep training program where it's quick and get done fast. But I'll tell you, the little sweet spot I would say is between 6 and 8 months. And the reason why is because most babies have started solids by that point. So now parents are more confident that their little ones can do it. And they're still not moving. Because when you wait past 8 months, now they're able to sit up, crawl, stand up, talk, walk. And now you've got way more challenges happening. So the earliest to sleep train fully is 16 weeks. That's when they can sleep through the night as long as they're eating well and a good schedule during the day. But 6 to 8 months is kind of like that little sweet spot. After 8 months, it just becomes more challenging for parents.
Yeah, and I think it, as you said, challenging for parents. I think parents start to have the hard time past 8 months when baby's sitting up, trying to get up, holding onto the crib and crying, and there's that emotional piece to it as well. Oh my goodness! But
well,
you
notice how many times I've said parents, right? When I do discovery calls with potential clients and we're having a chat about if this is right for them, they're always like, well, how do I know if my baby's ready? How do I know if my baby can do it? How do I know? And I'm like, listen, it's about you. It's really about you. Your baby will thrive as long as you're doing it safely and properly. But even if your baby is, beyond the age that I had said and eating really well and you're not ready, don't do it just because your mom, your friend, or Google told you you need to. You have to be ready.
You have to be ready. Yeah. You do have to be ready. I think each time with our kids, I was the one that was ready. My husband wasn't necessarily ready. I don't think he realized until our kids started sleeping through the night how much he needed it. So in the end, he thanked me for taking the lead. He's like, oh, I was kind of iffy about this. He's like, but oh my gosh. He's like, is this what it feels like to get a good night's sleep? I'm like, right? Like it changes your world. And I think, as you said, Deb, parents have to be ready for it, because I have friends and colleagues whose kids are still up at two, coming in and out every day out of their bedroom. And I'm like, no. And they're like, oh, how do you do it? How do your kids sleep for so long? I'm like, because I had that foundational help at about that sweet spot around 6 to 7 months. I did that sleep teaching with my kids because I knew that I need sleep. I'm not a good person without sleep. So never any judgment.
This is about thriving, not surviving. And if you're thriving and you're doing well, keep doing it. But so here's a little segue, because I know we want to talk about some nutrition as well. And I've mentioned how nutrition can impact babies in terms of how they're sleeping, and toddlers and how they're sleeping. But I will say that a lot of times we go through this sleep program, we get the babies on a really good schedule, a good routine, they're eating well, and they're sleeping great. And then parents realize they're struggling to sleep now because they've been sleeping with one eye open for 6 months or a year. So I love the topic that we're talking about, not only sleep for babies and kids, but also even for the parents, because that's a common issue is now they can sleep better, but they don't know how. And they don't even know that nutrition can impact them and their kids on how they're sleeping. So tell me maybe a few things about that, because I'd love to learn too. What kinds of things could we do during the daytime, either if it's for our kids or for the parents? What kinds of things can we include to help facilitate that?
Oh, for sure. So, it's a great question, Deb. I think people often miss that connection. So for myself, I primarily work with women postpartum. So I kind of like that same sweet spot you're talking about. That's when I like to start working more hand in hand with moms, especially because baby's starting to sleep through that night. I want to start to support them as well, because they're not breastfeeding as much, because when you're breastfeeding, playing with your nutrition is not really the best thing at that point. We want to just make sure we're eating and we're supporting that, that milk supply as much as possible. So when it comes to sleep, when we start thinking about sleep for ourselves, parents, one of the things I always attack first, I always discuss caffeine. So what does your caffeine intake look like during the day? A lot of us maybe we're doing caffeine later on in the day to kind of, you know, keep our eyes open later into the night. And once baby starts sleeping, it's one of those things that I start to talk about maybe pulling back if you're caffeine sensitive after a certain cutoff point in the day. So like for me, I know if I have caffeine past 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock, I'm done. I'm up all night. I'm like an owl, like all night. So caffeine is definitely one of those things. I'm caffeine sensitive. That's out the door. Um, Carbohydrates. So carbs is one of those things that I know, you know, sometimes, especially moms and sometimes dads, we like to have that sweet treat when our kids go down. We're like, oh, and we have like a bowl of ice cream or we have a little bit of chocolate. So things like simple carbs actually don't help our sleep very well. So if we really are struggling with our sleep, then we want to have things. I work with parents and moms, and I talk about complex carbs. So things like even like having like really homemade granola or like a great whole grain type food before heading down, or even some moms even have like a little bit of bowl of rice with some beans in there to help sustain them. I talk about things like fueling your body to helping your body stay asleep. Complex carbs will help your blood sugar remain stable, and you really do get a better night's sleep. Even nuts, things like nuts before bed, not right before bed, but about an hour, are very helpful. And then we start to attack things like using other foods such as like tart cherry juice. Like tart cherry juice is one of those secret weapons that people don't often think about. There's been absolute research that has shown that tart cherry juice has really helped with people's sleep if they have it close to their bedtime. Don't guzzle it because you'll get up and end up peeing, but you know, like a little cup, a little swig before you go down has been shown to be helpful. And then we talk about specific nutrients. So things like zinc and tryptophan, those are the things, and magnesium, those are the things at nighttime that will start to help. And I like to use foods first and supplements after. So we work on the foods that contain those things and helping parents to get that better night's sleep. The interesting thing with food though is they still haven't really figured out how much and for how long before, or is it like a week? Is it a depletion in the body that affects the sleep? So with nutrition, there's always research happening and more science, but those are kind of the key things with parents that I like to attack, and I like to go down line by line to work through to figure out what works for them, because it's not a one approach fits all, which I'm sure you know with sleep teaching. It's every child, every family dynamic is different, and so we have to work through that and helping our parents to figure that out, especially our mamas.
I think the issue is this: we're not losing sleep because we're working too much or we're under stress. You know, emotionally, I think a lot of it is very different for new moms. Is one is they're healing after having a baby, so that's really challenging on your body. And two, they don't have time to make themselves some nutritious meals. So, like you said, the little ones go down, and now we're shoving whatever we can in our mouths. Can you maybe give us 2 or 3 ideas of what a new mom could do, maybe on a prep day, on a Sunday, of what they could maybe have in their fridge, so when it becomes the evening time, they can go and do some of these quick grabs?
Oh, absolutely. So I like to make quick little snack bags. So literally on prep day, you can make that trail mix for yourself, right? You can put in those nuts. You can put in, dried tart cherries. You can even make those type of trail mixes, put them in a little Ziploc bags, write days on there, have it really easy. Cut up some fruits with the skin on, cut them up, put them in little, I have these cute little Ziploc jars that you can twist. Put those in the fridge and line them up. Make it very simple. You're absolutely right, Deb. When you're exhausted, the first thing you grab is whatever gets your hand, right? So do those things. Bake those type of really high fiber muffins for yourself on a Sunday. Take them out, put them in individual bags, or freeze them if you'd like, and take them out as time goes on during the week. Prep as much as you can when you get those spurts of energy, so that in those moments when you don't have the energy, you can just pull them out of the fridge and grab them really easily. And you can just find really simple, Costco has some great granola bars, just making sure they're not high in sugar. Don't feel guilty like you have to make everything from scratch. Like, not everyone's going to make stuff from scratch. Just go get a great granola bar. Like, look at it. Everyone's like, oh, but Jady, I don't make stuff from scratch. I'm like, neither do I. Like, I pull out stuff out of freezer bags all the time. Like, that's life. We're busy.
Yes.
So also just take your time, read the labels, make sure you find a really good one, and just don't feel guilty. Just pop that and eat it, and you're on your way.
Yeah, and you know what?
It's about the simplest
This
thing.
is a great idea. We always tell parents, you know what? Don't feel bad about asking for help. And I'll tell you, how many times has someone offered to help, and we're like, oh no, we're
No,
fine.
that's okay.
Give them a recipe. Can you make me